boom player of the week. I mean, it had to be this guy, Jonathan Taylor, 48 fantasy points in this one, 244 yards on the ground, 42 yards as a receiver, 3 total touchdowns in this game. Chris, this was his 5th contest of the year with 3 touchdowns scored in a game. Unbelievable season for Jonathan Taylor, and he quite simply took that game over early on in Germany this morning.
Oh, 100%. And I want to say he's moved into, these are second or third in MVP odds, even though the idea of a running back getting the MVP, actually getting to that point, is kind of ridiculous, but still seeing him at around I want to say around plus 500 or something along those lines. But still, he came into this game facing a Falcons defense that was allowing the 11th most yards per game. So this was kind of going to be one of those Jonathan Taylor cutting through, slicing through the Falcons defense like a knife, like a hot knife through butter. So seeing him at a 59.4% rushing success rate and really dusting any of the other, and really keeping the production just to the rushing game. And of course, we'll talk about any of the pass catching woes for a couple of the wide receivers for the Colts. I mean, really, it was the Jonathan Taylor offense and not much else going on in the passing game outside of a couple of guys, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll break down more of the passing game in just a second. But yeah, to me, this was just a game where I agree with you. Is the running back going to win MVP? No, we do this every single year where this player, the running back who's having this Saquon season last year, the Christian McCaffrey season a few years ago, this is about the time of the year when there is a groundswell of support for that guy to be the MVP. And I totally get it. Would this team look this good without Jonathan Taylor? No. It would not. We can't just copy paste DJ Giddens or one of these other replacement backs on the team and be like, yeah, of course they'd be having this offensive season with that guy back there. They wouldn't be. And they certainly wouldn't have won this game today, Chris. I can't stress this enough for folks out there. He really took this game over, even just watching it on the side while we're doing FFL in the morning. You could see that Jonathan Taylor was just simply not going to be denied here. Next Gen Stats noted that Jonathan Taylor gained 288 of his 244 rushing yards after contact in this one. That was the most in a game by a rusher over the past 9 seasons. Of course, one of them was the longest run of the season in which he gained which he scored a touchdown where he gained most of the yards after contact because he ran right up the gut and then just took it to the outside. But even on that play, Chris, he outruns AJ Terrell to the edge. AJ Terrell is a cornerback who weighs much less than Jonathan Taylor and ran a sub 4.4 coming into the league. So that just goes to show you the level of which Jonathan Taylor is playing at. Again, he had a bit of a down game. Well, he certainly had a down game last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers that the entire offense did. But this was a bounce back spot for the Colts offense, showed where they still have some holes that we'll talk about here in just a moment when we get to that game. But when Taylor's cooking, when he could take these games over, they're still one of the most scary offenses to play against on any given week basis. Let's get to our bust player of the week here, which talk about a scary proposition. Justin Jefferson scores 5.7 fantasy points in this game. Chris, what did you think watching that J.J. McCarthy performance today? We will break it down a little bit more in depth when we get to, spoiler alert, the final section of this show. But how alarmed are you at what we've seen with J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson, and some of these passing game players?
I wouldn't say I'm alarmed because from an opportunity standpoint, it was still Justin Jefferson out close to the top in terms of opportunities and target share for this game, around 29% of the targets. But still, when you have a quarterback that's as inexperienced playing in those types of games where you have Kyle Hamilton continuing to be just a menace when he's out there on the field, regardless of where he's lined up at. And you do have enough players, like defensive players on the Ravens side, to limit whatever that they're trying to do. And you get this inexperienced quarterback with J.J. McCarthy. That's what I was saying in the intro. It's just, we've seen the sparks from McCarthy in some of the games prior, but those have been in situations where it's more of a neutral game script. The Vikings are in control. They can try and do whatever they want to do from a either rush perspective and give the ball to either Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason, and then kind of let JJ McCarthy work afterwards. But now in this script where, the Ravens did keep things kind of close for a while until they started to pick up a lead towards the back end of that game. But even still, you could feel the pressure on McCarthy throughout most of it. And so that's where instead of having the passing lanes to Justin Jefferson, it was more to the Jalen Nailors of the world in order to continue getting that passing production and keeping the Vikings offense on schedule. So I'm not as concerned. I still think from a target share standpoint, Justin Jefferson should still be a guy that we start each week. But we kind of knew this coming into the season that if he was going to be tethered to a quarterback like JJ McCarthy, we would have to ride some of those waves from a production standpoint. And this game against the Ravens is really proof of all that.
Yeah, and the Ravens defense is much better, especially on the back end, than it was at different points of the season. And this is not the type of script that the Vikings want JJ McCarthy to be in. They don't want him to be in some of these negative game scripts where he's trying to have to throw them out of a lead, because you saw it today. He's just not capable of doing that. But that is a big problem for the pass catchers. It is a problem for Justin Jefferson, who, he had a couple of misplays at the catch point here in this game, I think, if we're being fair, but every wide receiver has those. The problem is when you're in this situation, as you detailed really well there, with this type of quarterback, you can't afford little mistakes here and there. You have to be absolutely perfect as a wide receiver, and that's just a lot to put on any player at this position. So 12 targets, 4 receptions. As a whole, as a passing team, the Minnesota Vikings, 37.2% success rate on their passing plays. That was sandwiched between the New York Giants, who had Russell Wilson make an appearance in this game and have really no threatening wide receivers, and just one spot ahead of whatever the Denver Broncos put on the field on Thursday Night Football. So it did not go well from a passing game from a Vikings standpoint. I wonder if we eliminate the Jalen Naylor plays from those, what the success rate would be. It would probably not be very high, which is where you did not have a good game throwing the football if that is the case.